Yo fam, it's your boy Punk. Welcome back to Punk TV and welcome back to the channel, guys. Today we are going to take another closer look when it comes to From Software games and of course his brand newest IP, Armored Core 6 itself. Today we're going to talk about what Armored Core 6 truly is about, and of course if you are a Souls gamer itself, new or old, should you be excited about Armored Core just in general itself. As we know, recently the biggest news feeds and of course gaming channels have been covering Armored Core tremendously. Some of them were on bullet points, some of them were completely wrong about what Armored Core truly is about. So as a gamer itself and a From Software enthusiast and a gamer who's been playing From Software since the beginning itself, even though I'm a small YouTuber and a small channel, I've been a fan of From Software since day one itself. And I've been a fan of the mech genre since day one, since the very first Gundam series actually came out when I was old enough to understand what I was looking at. And as an African itself, this type of games and anime, mangas is always something that's been intriguing to me. So when From Software came out with the very first Demon Souls and Dark Souls franchise, I was completely hooked of it. I love the universe, I love the gameplay of it, I love every single beat if it comes to From Software games. Especially if you know that From Software games has a tremendously form of appeal and similarity when it comes to the Berserker genre itself. The dark fantasy genre is something that really got me hooked in a way that I can simply not explain itself. So as a Soulsborne gamer, so as a veteran as a Soulsborne game, and of course with the tremendous success of the Elden Ring, and a game I'm still streaming as today. In this game I'm still making builds up to this game, making different from varieties of builds, how you can tackle different from bosses, even still today. I can be more intrigued and I can be more happy to see that From Software is rebooting and rebranching himself to different forms of genre itself. As a mech enthusiast and mech fan, I can be more exciting to see what From Software can bring to the newest generation and of course the newest gamers out there if it comes to the brand's new IP. But the one thing that always been stuck by me is that a lot of gamers out there, a lot of content creators, a lot of game analysis, I keep referring to Armored Core as a Souls game with mech, as a lot of them have been emphasizing the similarity of the duel of the boar genre itself in form of gameplay and in forms of things that might look like a Ester flask and whatever things I've heard left and right, and I would say like these are completely false and completely wrong. That's why for my own community for itself, for those who follow me from different forms of games, or it's Destiny or it's from Souls games, from Software games, I wanted to clarify that actually what is Armored Core and to really give you the bullet points what you can expect. Because personally I don't want you to buy a game out there and you're thinking you were playing the Elden Ring, then with mech genre itself. You're thinking you're gonna have an open world experience, then you were playing like a form of Gundams, then an open world experience like you had in the Elden Ring in the fantasy genre. If you're thinking in that aspect, in that way you're gonna experience Armored Core, then I have to tremendously disappoint you, because that's not the case. If you've been listening to the other podcasters, I'm really sorry, but I'm gonna break your bubble, because that is not what Armored Core truly is. For you to understand what Armored Core truly is, it's really important that you understand the history of Armored Core itself. So let us double down a little bit if it comes to the history of Armored Core. But before we start, remember, if you do like this content, don't forget to like, comment and subscribe yourself to the channel. So in recent years, From Software has become known as an epic fantasy work, taking players through deadly kingdoms and nations beside horrible beasts, to the Demon Souls franchise and Dark Souls trilogy. On the other hand, like I mentioned, the Elden Ring, who came out recently, the Japanese developer has made a name for itself. This stretches all the way back to its roots from a very first game From Software released, where the dungeon crawling Kingsfield that eventually spawned the modern Souls formula. Looking over From Software history, revealing a line of fantasy action titles that evolve over time, but always kept some ties towards the previous franchise of its games itself. However, in addition to assortment of fantasy and unique project that From Software has, there's always been one genre that From Software was also specialized in. Shortly after it starts as a game developer, From Software started working on a game that's called Armored Core. and Armored Core is a mech action series consistently released during the period of 1997 all the way to 2013. It only skipped 1998 and 2001. Without a doubt, these mech piloting simulators are a core part of the developments that only fell by the wayside of Dark Souls provide more popular. Understanding that the newly announced Armored Core series fires a Rubicon and why its announcement is such a big deal involves knowing some of the earliest history of itself. It becomes extremely important. The blueprint, if it comes to the Armored Core itself, it started in very first in 1986. From Software was originally a business software, if you didn't know, that didn't really develop video games. However, there was a small team of employees that worked in PC games between larger projects, had a passion for variety if it comes to Western fantasy and giant robots. When the larger company decided to branch out into video games themselves, the smaller development team tried to make PC games with 3D robot navigating underground labyrinths. This was halted by technical issues, but both its idea and its failure paved the way for Software's biggest games, which reveal of the Sony PlayStation. The first Kingsfield was quickly prepared for PlayStation in 1994 launch window, and it spawns 2 sequels over the following 2 years. However, something else was building momentum in the background. Renowned mech designer, apologies if I pronounce your name wrong, Shoji Kawamori, was approached before the PlayStation launch to work on a game from the software itself. The initial pitch involved players design modular mecha, which Kawamori focused the idea of machine built around armored cores. The idea of mech navigating underground labyrinths was revisited, with the expansions being that humanity had retreated underground after calamity. This Foshian mega corporation employee mercenaries called Ravens has risen to power, and the players slowly learned about this through missions, briefings, and has continued piloting their career. One thing linked to another, and the first Armored Core was released in Japan on the PlayStation 1 on July 10, 1997. After that, Armored Core took a tremendous flight and of course became a massive success when it comes to From Software. So From Software understood quickly that it had a hit on its hands, which the first Armored Core being considered as the point where the company solidified around game development. A prequel titled Armored Core Project Phantasium was released a few months later and began the trend of Armored Core game begins release itself, with save data that carried themselves through from games to game itself. That's something completely different if it comes to any other Souls games. Armored Core developments a passionate following in Japan, with a strong emphasis on customization to take on the variety of challenges to provide missions, becoming a huge draw. The separate arena modes, competitive multiplayer were favorite features, and the surprising deep politics story gave the narrative fans something to chew on for years and years. While the series was more obscure in North America, it also developed a cult following. Modern For Software players familiarized with Demon's Souls and Bloodborne were surprised to learn that there had long been some relationship between For Software and Sony. Were published a worldwide release of the Armored Core. While this was a temporary arrangement, the combined success of Armored Core, initially outstanding, combined with the internal interest, led to the becoming the huge franchise that still had more entries than any other From Software games until today. The developer used its expertise to make numbers of other type of mechs games like Metal Wolf Chaos, Mobile Suit Gundam Unicorns, and etc., building a strong legacy that seems stronger than any other fantasy efforts they ever made before. Armored Core itself struggled along comfortably for many years. It clung to the formula of 2 or 3 titles in the next generation. While several spin-offs had been released, the narrative continuity from soft reboots, and a few times by adding weapons, parts, certain other aspect that like enemy mech 9 balls and some form of a software signature aesthetic weapons like the Moonlight sword, for example, will all continue to appear if it comes to the Soulsborne game and the Armored series itself. And the beginning of Armored 4 shook the series in 2006 by changing to a much faster style of gameplay on the release of the PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360. This also happens at the beginning and the entry of the amazing, and of course the grandfather of the Soulsborne game, Hidaka Miyazaki, as his first director debut. As an Armored Core fans, and for answering for their nowadays changes and highly devised time, is all thanks to Miyazaki's former vision how the game is actually becoming. Unfortunately, it was merely a prelude towards the 2012 Armored Core 5. The following year's Armored Core Verdict Day, Armored Core attempt to strike balance between the classic slow gameplay and the modern fast gameplay, but ended up pushing the old fans base away from the abnormal poor single player campaign and awkward multiplayer changes. Verdict Day fixed some things, but it also proved to be the end of the series until Armored Core 6 was announced a few decades later. It seems like Demon X Machina, conceived by several forms of Armored Core developers, would be Armored Core's only legacy for many years, and that's what makes this announcement, if it comes to Armored Core, extremely exciting for a lot of fans to see what Armored Core 3 is going to be about. Now the thing is that a lot of people always been mentioning, if it comes to Armored Core, is it going to be, of course, like I said, a Souls game with mechs? No, it's 100% completely wrong. The one thing that's been emphasized in recently as well, if it comes to the latest review and interview of IGN itself, the Hidaka Miyazaki specifically said it's going to stick in towards the core essence what made Armored Core, and without adding any form of Soul style element into it. So the idea itself that the Armored Core is going to be an Souls like with mech genre is completely 100% wrong. And contrary, Armored Core itself you have to see as a small reboot of the franchise itself, which they can expand itself towards newer titles and newer entries and IPs itself. The same thing that is Elden Ring is a form of a reboot of the Souls genre itself to a brand new audience. Armored Core is going to be a reboot of the old beloved franchise itself, but towards a newer genre itself, by maintaining the core essence of what Armored Core truly is about. And yes, you're going to have some form of similarity if it comes to, like say, the Moonlight weapons or certain characters like patches who are going to come into the game itself. If you are Soulsborne game itself, you will see those similarities into the game. By saying that Armored Core is going to be a Souls game, you're 100% wrong. If it comes to the difficulty level itself, if you think that Elden Ring was difficult, then you're going to have a rude awakening, because the Armored Core is known to be 100 times more difficult and more challenging than any form of Souls game we played before. And the story, like I mentioned, is going to be a mission-based, story-driven way of telling a story. Something that's completely different if it comes to the Soulsborne games, which leaves you in the form of an open narrative to understand what's going on around you. So if you play the Elden Ring, you understand that how you proceed the story itself is how you have a deductive analysis if it comes to what's happening around you. By analyzing the weapons, the trinkets you find left and right, you can picture yourself an overall idea what's happened in the lands between. Compare really towards the Armored Core's story and the way the story is told, is story in the form of a mission-based story in which you can follow, of course, the narrative politics that's happening around you. Am I very excited if it comes to Armored Core? Yeah, and because I'm a mech fan, I am tremendously excited if it comes to Armored Core itself. But I do want to emphasize to all you gamers out there that do not come to Armored Core thinking that it's gonna be a Souls game that you're gonna replay for the first time and then in a mech genre, because this is not the case. This is a standalone IP with its own form of identity, and that is Armored Core, not Souls-like. This is Armored Core, and it's completely different in itself. It's very important, fam, that we all understand that what truly Armored Core truly is. Instead of trying to make a comparison to what a Soulsborne game is, and I fundamentally believe that is not the case, Armored Core is a standalone IP. It will focus on what made the Armored Core the Armored Core, the series itself, its own bread and butter, and it is the assembling of mechs. Player can swap out everything from rocket launchers to legs, prioritizing every single thing from speed boosting over engineering their own personal death machine. And battles, while meanwhile players be rewarded for their aggressive playstyle that try to keep enemies on foot. Severe and intense battle is still very much the focus, but customization and mech movement are still the foundation of what makes the Armored Core the Armored Core. Once again, if it comes to the things you can expect if it comes to the Armored Core, it's going to be in story, it's going to be in segmented in missions. You customize your loadout in between missions, earn money from missions to buy better gear from your mechs. There will be a versus mode, but I truly don't believe that focus is going to be a multiplayer. Branding new settings and story that does not really means connected to early games. You're probably going to have a certain form of information what's happened before, but I truly don't think that's going to have a connection towards the previous Armored Core. I fundamentally believe is this going to be a reboot, and boss battles featuring valid machines are the highlight, of course, of the game, because this is still a Soulsborne game. You can expect a brutal experience itself. The closest thing I've truly find if it comes to what the Armored Core is going to play and feel like, if I look at the gameplay metrics and how it feels in a 360-degree area, as Zone of the Enders. Zone of the Enders is one of the most amazing mech games that has been created by Hideo Kojima. It's focused on combining lightning fast melee attacks with ranged combat missiles to defeat your enemies at range. Combining that with fast dodging, with a very frantic combat system engaging, which makes the Zone of the Enders an incredibly fun game to play. Which, if I look at the combat system of Armored Core, I cannot believe that the similarity, of course, to Zone of the Enders is truly out there. But the thing is that recreating that feeling in climbing into giant robots, and where most video games excel in it, the tactical and customization aspect of games like Mech Warriors and Armored Core make those games great. But I can be craved more as a fan of the mech genre, not only because I'm a fan of Zone of the Enders, which that made that genre very unique. I'm truly psyched about the dynamic playstyles that we are seeing right now if it comes to, of course, the Armored Core. But the thing is that I'm truly excited if it comes to the Armored Core is that the Armored Core can truly not fail, to be honest with you. Not a single Armored Core game has sold more than 1 million copies. But that was of course before the From Software game became the poster boy if it comes to the hardcore enthusiasts as myself. Nowadays, Japan heavyweight can sell 20 million units in Elden Ring with a close eye. That is absolutely insane, the amount of success that the Armored Core truly had. And its latest series, the Armored Core 6, only can benefit from that. And knowing that, I'm truly hyped that, for at least for the Armored Core Grand Core fans out there, that this game is going to be seen from a wider public and wider audience itself. Knowing that the logo of From Software is going to be printed in the box, we know for a fact that this game is going to be sold tremendously a lot if it comes to its release on the 25th of August 2023, excuse me. But just looking at the video of the first gameplay of Armored Core, the few things we can do, make an assessment if it comes to the flying mechanics of comes to Armored Core itself. The big difference is going to be, if I compare it straight to the Zone of the Enders, is that in flying with the Armored Core, it's not going to be a continuous aspect. You're going to have an air boost system where you're going to need to refuel after you're landing. And the second thing we know for a fact that we can analyze if it comes to how Armored Core is going to work, we're going to have a certain form of a checkpoint system that is similar towards the bonfire or the side of grace that we do know if it comes to the Soulsborne game, which you can build your mech and adjust your stats between death and respawn. You're going to have a repair kits which replenish your health, and there's a very limited, and you can only get them back after every single supply points. And these are the things that is a form of a signature when it comes to for Soulsborne game, and of course how the Soulsborne game works. That's the direct comparisons I can make, that okay, this feels like a Soulsborne game. But for the rest, where the biggest content creators are creating and telling it's gonna be a Souls game and mix, that is 100% completely wrong. It is Armored Core. This has its own form of a feeling, own form of playstyles, and own form of universe that for us is brand new to enjoy for itself. For those who are Armored Core veteran itself, I can 100% promise you that the game that you know and love is still there. So do not listen or do not follow those enthusiasts of the Soulsborne game who are calling this an Armored Core and Soulsborne jackets, because it really is not the case. You're gonna have certain form of similarities that it's gonna be hopping up stuff from the previous title. Like I said, you're gonna have a boost bar if it comes to your flying mechanics, and of course you're gonna have something similar to Society of Grace, or a bonfire, repair kits, all this kind of stuff that are like a signature thing if it comes to the Soulsborne game. That always has been there if it comes to games like Sekiro has their own standalone IP, to Bloodborne has its own standalone IP. They're all differently, but there's a few things that are unique and that makes the Souls game of the for software games, the for software games that are automatically going to be in Armored Core as well. That is just a fact that we're going to have. Yeah, I just wanted to keep it to that if it comes to this analysis, if it comes to what Armored Core is, and we'll be going even deeper as the week comes and the day comes. We're gonna go even deeper and trying to figure out what Armored Core truly is. And do expect on the release of 25th of August we are going to stream it here live on Twitch itself if it comes to Pencaster TV itself, and we expect more in-depth analysis, gameplay walkthrough, tips and tricks, and some beautiful stuff. If all of this intrigues you and likes you, don't forget to like, comment and subscribe to the channel. And most importantly, let me know in the comments what you think what Armored Core truly is going to be. I am correct, I am wrong. Let me know in the comments down below. Are you excited? Are you a veteran? Are you coming back? Or are you not coming back to Armored Core itself? And why? And let me know in the comments down below. It's always nice to see and hear, and of course I'll use that in the form of a next analysis video why the community are happy or mad if it comes to what this Armored Core truly is. So I can hit the bullet points even more correct if it comes to the analysis of the Armored Core itself. Usually you can expect a review as well and a preview of the Armored Core the moment you have access towards it. Once again, thank you very much, and thank you for listening to me and thank you for chilling with me. And once again, if the audio is a little bit different than you are expecting, it's because right now, for those who follow me on Twitch knows I'm a Marine, and me making this podcast and this quick analysis is actually I'm still on board, so the echoes and all the stuff you hear is based on that because I'm still on board. Anyway, thank you very much for being here, and I hope I can see you every single one of you very very soon during my live stream, of course when I'm back home, of course away from mission. Once again, thank you, one love, merci, à plus, ciao ciao.